Welcome back to the University of Alabama. I hope you have enjoyed the GTA workshop so far. Just show of hands, how many of you are teaching a class this semester for the first time? All right, so say probably about a third of the room. Okay, so I'd say most of you have experience with planning a syllabus. You have experience with planning assignment sheets and things like that. This workshop session is just to kind of give you some background on those materials, particularly for what you need to do for UA, but just also give you some tips and some pointers for making those lectures and those assignment sheets and syllabi more effective for your classes. So before I jump into this, just kind of give you a little bit of background on me. My name is Keenan Brown. I'm an associate professor and I'm the graduate coordinator for the Department of Advertising and Public Relations. I'm over in Communication and Information Sciences. I'm also the programming director for our Alabama program in sports communication. My bachelor's and my master's, I have a bachelor's in journalism and a master's in PR, and I got both of those from the University of Tennessee. I've heard every Tennessee joke there is in the 10 years I've been here, so it's fine. And I actually came here for my doctorate back in 2009 and finished that in 2012 and actually stuck around, and I've been on the faculty ever since. So this is my 7th year as full-time faculty in the Department of Ad and PR. I've worked in marketing and management for most of my professional career. My last job professionally was a regional marketing manager for Buffalo Wild Wings. A lot of my work revolves around athlete image management, strategic market research and planning, media relations, so I'm still kind of well versed in the field as well. So I have been tasked to talk to you about syllabus creation and course preparation. So by the time we're done with this session, I really want to cover 4 things. The first is I want you to understand the importance of syllabus and course preparation and how it contributes to a productive classroom environment. I want you to understand the key components to make sure that your syllabus is university compliant. I want you to understand how to effectively prepare your lecture notes for class. Now, I know Dr. Brooks talked to you a little bit this morning about delivering your lectures, so that's not really going to be my area of expertise today. I'm really more going to tell you about how do you prepare your lecture slides, your notes, that sort of thing. And then how do you write a clear assignment sheet? So that's what we're going to cover in this session today. So when you talk about teaching, like what makes an educator a great teacher? What makes them a great instructor? And to me, it's really 4 things. The first thing is their personality. Now, I'm not saying that you have to, have a sense of humor or crack jokes for 50 minutes while you're lecturing, but you at least need to have a personality that is engaging, a personality that the students are going to become attracted to in the classroom, that they are going to feed off of in the classroom. It's going to generate discussion. It's going to generate enthusiasm about the topic that you're discussing. Tied with that, you got to have a presence. I mean, you have to be engaging, but you also have to command a room. I mean, you are the authority figure in that room. You're the instructor. You're the one that should be the master of that material to those students. So you have to have a presence in that classroom. You have to have a passion for whatever the topic is, whatever the subject is that you're discussing. If you're not passionate about your topic, if you're not passionate about whatever it is that you're lecturing about, then how do you expect your students to be passionate about it? How do you expect them to care about the information that you're giving them? So you have to be passionate. And above all else, you need to be prepared. I mean, you need to be the most well-prepared person in that room. And that's really what this session is going to be all about. How do you become a well-prepared instructor? So when you talk about course preparation, so before you sit down and write your syllabus, before you sit down and write your lecture notes, your assignment sheets, anything, I want you to think about a few things. The first thing you think about, who are your students? Who is it that you're actually teaching in this class? There are going to be differences between teaching a room full of freshmen for a 100 level lecture versus teaching a room full of seniors for a 400 level capstone course. The knowledge base is going to be different. The way that they approach the class is going to be different. The way you approach the class is going to be different. And you're not going to teach those classes the same. So understanding who your students are. You're also not going to teach a class to majors and minors that have that background the same as you would teach a class that is going to have all types of majors in it. You're not going to teach a 100 level English class, basic English class, the same way that you would teach a 400 level English class that you know is going to be full of English majors and minors. Because you're going to have all sorts of walks of life in that class. You're going to have all sorts of majors in that core class. So approaching that is going to be different. So bottom line, you have to understand who your students are and who you're teaching to. Kind of tying into that, what are their backgrounds? What are their prior knowledge levels? How much information are you expecting them to come into for that class? Because the knowledge level that they have, that's going to approach the topics that you cover. That's going to determine how much detail you go into for those topics that you're covering in a class. So understanding whatever their prior knowledge level is going to be important. How big is the class? If you're teaching a large lecture with 250, 300 students, you're probably not going to assign a bunch of papers for that class. At the same time, a small class with 20 people, 30 people, is probably going to be more discussion-based. So understanding the size of the class, and not only that, but just the logistics of the class as well. Are we dealing with a large lecture? Is this a lecture lab course? Is it more of a seminar? So understanding the logistics surrounding that class is going to be important to how you do prepare and how you format it. What resources are available to you? Now, your department, your college, they should give you some resources from the start. They should give you example syllabi. They should give you maybe examples of textbooks that you should use in the class. But ask for example assignment sheets. Ask for finished products from the class. Get as much as you can to help you prepare for building your syllabus and your assignment sheets. Also, there are a ton of resources online and through the Faculty Resource Center on university campus. There are a lot of resources that you can use on the internet, in the library, whatever. But one rule of thumb or one piece of advice I would give you is if you're lecturing just from the textbook, your information isn't going to be engaging. So you really want to use these types of resources to your advantage. Don't just go chapter by chapter and regurgitate what is coming out of the textbook. As much as you can, use examples, use supplemental materials, anything that you can pull that helps enhance that material, the more engaging that lecture, that discussion is going to be. And then finally, what's your end game? For every single class that you are teaching, and I guarantee there are a ton of different classes represented in this room. For every single one of them, I guarantee you there are a list of objectives that you have to meet for that class. That list of objectives comes from your department. You need to take those objectives, understand that that's your end game, and say, okay, how is my class going to help meet those objectives? How am I going to get to this point with my students? And that's going to help you decide how to build your syllabus, how to build your lectures, how to build your assignments, and so forth. Okay. Any questions so far? All right. Okay, so the syllabus. I got a question for you. Think back to your undergrad days. Think back to a syllabus that you just absolutely hated. What did you hate about it? What are some things that you hated about that syllabus? Yeah.
I hated that at the beginning it would say one thing, but then later on there would be a discrepancy, like they had reused it several times.
Yep. They obviously didn't pay attention to detail. I mean, how are they going to ask you to pay attention to detail as a student if, okay, on page 1 you're telling me this, but on page 7 you're telling me that, which is the policy? So yeah, that's what else? Yeah. Formatting. And be more specific. What about it?
I received one that the margins were so small, half the text got cut off.
Okay.
And she was like, well, you can just look at it on Blackboard.
Once again, attention to detail. You can't ask your students to have any attention to detail if you don't as an instructor. What else?
Too much content, like not really summarized. Too much content, and I'm lost. Like, what am I supposed to do at the end of the day?
Yep. Did we all have a professor that would just slap a 30-page syllabus on the desk just to try to scare you? There's no need for that. I mean, one, I wouldn't read that. I mean, I wouldn't want to write a 30-page syllabus. So yeah, absolutely. What else?
I really hate it when there's not a separate place for you to see the course calendar and assignments, where it's like 3 pages where you're flipping to find each different assignment. Or like if you just had one page where all the assignments were nicely laid out, it would be so much.
Yeah, it's unorganized. I mean, just information is just all over the place. They obviously didn't really take the time to format it correctly, to organize it correctly. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else? Yeah.
I actually had the opposite of too much to where it was just like they needed to have a syllabus.
Yeah.
And so they gave you like one page that was like, here are some objectives. I'm not even going to put the stuff that you have to do up there. I just had to do it.
Yep. The syllabus just wasn't clear. I mean, I guarantee you, maybe it wasn't one page, but I guarantee you we all have sat in those classes, myself included, where the syllabus was maybe 2 or 3 pages and it really didn't tell you anything about it. The good thing is, really at UA, I mean, we require a syllabus for every class, and we require a detailed syllabus for every class. And I think that's important because when you look at that syllabus, it really is the contract for that class. I mean, that is the go-to for every student that is in your class. If there's an issue with grade, if there's an issue with attendance, if there's an issue with deadlines, anything, that syllabus is the first source of that information. So it really is important to have a rock-solid syllabus when you're building it. So what makes a good syllabus? It needs to provide a clear vision and a clear rationale for the class. This is what we're going to cover, and this is why it's important. Now, a lot of that is going to come in your course description. It's going to come in other details that you have to have in that syllabus according to UA standards. But above all else, it needs to clearly tell the students, hey, this is why you're taking the course. A logical rationale for the organization of the course. So it should be clear why you are approaching the course the way you are approaching it. It should be clear-cut, it should be simple, it should be easy to follow. You need to provide a clear set of expectations for the course. I mean, it needs to be set in stone. Hey, if you want to make an A in this class, this is what you need to do. And make sure those expectations are set from the start. And that syllabus really is on the first day when you give them the syllabus, that is their contract. You're saying that, okay, if you want to succeed in my class, this is what you have to do. It defines and discusses the mutual responsibilities of you, the instructor, and the students to make sure that we're meeting the goals of the course. So let me explain this a little bit. You're telling the students that, hey, I'm going to do A, B, C, and D in this class. I expect A, B, C, and D from you. If I'm going to give you this, I expect this from you for the course, and together, this is how we're going to be successful. So not only are you laying out your expectations for them, but you're also laying out what they should expect from you as an instructor in terms of the material that you're covering, in terms of how you're going to deal with attendance and deadlines, in terms of how they should get in touch with you if they have questions. So you're setting your expectations while also setting their expectations for you. You're allowing students to achieve high degrees of personal control over their learning. What I mean by that is this is not high school anymore. So it is not your job to push that student along in that class. You're giving them the tools that they need to succeed, but you're not going to hold their hand through the process. What you are telling that student is, hey, I want you to make an A in this class. So to make an A in this class, this is what you're going to have to do, and this is what I'm going to give you. It's up to that student to take control of that information. It's up to that student to take control of that class and their progression through that class to make sure that they make the grade. And then finally, like I've said before, it serves as that contract for learning. So you're telling them that, hey, this is the way my class is going to be operated. This is how it's going to be managed. And you're setting those expectations from the start. Okay? Any questions? All right. So what do you need in a syllabus to meet UA standards, to meet UA requirements? So I'm going to kind of go through each of these very briefly, but you should have a sample syllabus of mine in your notebook. I want to say it's from my PR writing class. So you can follow along with that if you want to. If you have any questions, let me know. You can just stop me while I'm going through this. All right, so your syllabus requirements, what do you need in there? You got to give them contact information. You have to give them office hours or your availability. You have to let them know how they can get in touch with you and when they can get in touch with you. This is your email address, of course. I would stay away from putting your personal phone number on that syllabus. Trust me. Just don't do it. You will get all kinds of calls and all kinds of questions at random times of day or night if you do that. If you don't have an office phone, then put the main office line on there. but don't put your personal phone number, and don't put your personal email address. You should have a Crimson UA address. Use that. Okay? With office hours availability, you at least need to let the students know, okay, on these days at these times, you can stop by and we can talk about the class. So you have to have those office hours on there. If you can't set in stone office hours, then at least let them know how they can get in touch with you if they need to set a meeting with you. So like for example, with me for summer classes, I usually don't hold set office hours because I'm not going to be here as much as I need to during the summer. So what I would tell them is, okay, email me if you need to set a meeting. Here's my email address. If you need to set a meeting, this is what you need to do. So you either need to have the office hours on there or the availability. Course description, prereqs, course objectives, all of that information should come from your department. So your department should already have a course description. Your department should already have the prereqs set for that course, and they should already have course objectives that you should just copy and paste from their standard syllabus to yours. What you may tweak a little bit are your student learning outcomes. So I want to explain the difference between the objectives and the student learning outcomes. The course objectives, you're saying, okay, these are the 5, 6, 7 things that you are going to learn in this class. Like, students are expected to know the following once they are done with the course. Your student learning outcomes are telling them how you're going to assess those objectives. So let me give you an example from my syllabus. So if you're familiar with journalism, mass communications, one of the things that we require our students to learn is Associated Press style, AP style. So one of my course objectives would be that they should have a mastery of Associated Press style when they are finished with the class. Now, outcomes, I'm saying that I'm going to assess their mastery of AP style by using quizzes or giving them an AP style test or something along those lines that is going to assess if they know it. So those are the differences. Those objectives are your end game. That's saying, okay, to be successful in this course, you're going to learn these things. The outcomes are telling them this is how you're going to assess if they're meeting those objectives. Does that make sense? Because that's the part of the syllabus that really gets confusing sometimes for people. All right. Course textbook, materials. Really, every department is different. Your department may say, okay, you have to teach out of this textbook, no questions asked. Some departments may say, okay, we have 2 or 3 that our professors usually use. You can use one of those. Some departments say, you know what, it's your class, go find your own textbook. So my advice to you about this is I would go to your department chair, I would go to whoever your supervisor is going to be, and just find out if there's a standard textbook, find out if there are standard materials that you need for the class, or do you just need to go out on your own? Do they have anything that they prefer? Just get that information up front so that you're following their requirements, but also you're not in the dark about that. Okay? Textbooks are one thing, but there may be other materials that a student needs for your class to be successful. So for my PR writing class, yes, we have a couple of required textbooks, but it's a lab class. So I tell them, hey, you need a flash drive. You need to make sure you have money on your ACT card. You need to make sure that you have access to Google Drive because you're probably going to be using it for your group assignments. That's kind of taking it a step further because students don't necessarily always think about the materials that they need for the class. I mean, the textbook is one thing, but there are going to be other things that they need to be successful in that course. Just lay it out for them. Just lay it out for them. Make sure it's just set in that syllabus from the start. That way there are no questions about it. Yep. All right, a couple other things. Attendance policy. All right, I want to spend a little bit of time on this. You need to make sure that you have a rock solid attendance policy in that syllabus. This is the one thing that students will use to try to game the system more than anything. I promise you. Well, I didn't know that I couldn't miss 8 classes. It's not in the syllabus. You'll hear it. So just lay it out from the start. Hey, this is my attendance policy. This is what you need to follow. My attendance policy for my classes is simple. Every student gets 2 freebies. They get 2 absences. They don't have to email me. They don't have to call me, text me, let me know anything. They can just not show up. After those 2, 10 points off their final grade for every absence. That's the policy. So they got 2 absences to play around with, and after that, 10 points off their final grade. If they don't want to get those 10 points off their final grade, they need to bring me documentation. for that absence, for the third, fourth, fifth, whatever absence. They need to have a doctor's excuse or some kind of documentation. The reason that I go with this policy is because it gives the students a little bit of freedom to say, okay, you know, I'm planning a trip, or I'm going out of town, or I'm going to miss this class before Thanksgiving, or whatever. It gives them the freedom and the flexibility to really kind of plan ahead for that. But it also lets them know that, hey, I'm not going to be able to miss class that much. Like, I can't miss 3 or 4 or 5 classes in here. So I got to make sure I plan my absences wisely. So it gives you power, but it also gives them a little control and flexibility as well. Okay? I'm not saying that you have to follow that policy. I'm not saying that I want to see everybody's syllabus with that policy. But the reason that I'm telling you this is because that's an ironclad policy that I follow for every student. I don't make exceptions. And you got to make sure you don't do that. You got to make sure if you are setting that attendance policy in stone, that you are saying that this is what I'm following, and you're not going to tweak it for a student here and there. Yes?
Does the university have a class attendance policy? Because I know there, in some of my former classes that I've had, especially upper level classes, in undergraduate, the professors did not care if you came to class because, you know, it was up to you.
Yeah. The university doesn't have a standard attendance policy, and this is a good question. The university doesn't have a standard attendance policy. Your college or your department might. So what I would advise you to do is check with your supervisor, check with your chair, your grad coordinator, or whoever, and just find out if there is a college-wide or a department-wide attendance policy. But as far as like UA is concerned, there's not an attendance policy that's set in stone at the university level. So, yep, good question. Any other questions? All right. Same with the attendance policy, your deadline policy, your policy on missed exams and coursework. Once again, make sure it's set in stone. Make sure you don't make any exceptions. My deadline policy is no late work. It's a deadline-driven field, so therefore you need to learn to turn in your work on time. So I do not accept late work. That's not going to work for every single class that you have, particularly like I usually teach upper level students, master students, so that's a little bit different. If I taught Intro to Public Relations, I may be a little more lenient on that. So really just make sure that your deadline policy, your missed exam and coursework policy is adaptable to whatever class you're teaching. You know, just be logical, be fair, but be strict with it. Okay? And then campus diversity statement, disability services statement, academic integrity statement. Once again, this is information that your department should give you, and this is information that you should have in every single syllabus. Just copy and paste those statements from whatever syllabus you're using as an example to your own. And every syllabus you have should have those policies and procedures in it. Okay? Any questions about syllabi? All right, one thing I didn't have up here that is very important is your schedule of classes. Okay, so for UA, you only have to have like a week by week, this is the topic, this is what we're going over, to actually be UA compliant. I would advise you to have a session by session schedule laid out in that syllabus. So they know on this day, this is what we're covering. Give them the topic, give them the readings, give them everything that they need to know to prepare for that day. Just lay it out for them in stone. Now, that's not to say that you can't be flexible. I mean, you may get sick or something may happen. You may have to cancel. So you can be flexible on that calendar. You don't have to follow it. It doesn't have to be set in stone. But you're at least saying that, okay, this is the tentative outline for this class. It is subject to change, but at least expect these topics to be covered on these days. Okay? The more that you can just lay out for the student from the start, the less questions you're going to have. All right? All right. Any questions? We're good? All right. So I want to give you just some tips and some pointers on preparing lectures. Like I said, Dr. Brooks covered delivering lectures earlier. I really want to talk more about how do you prepare your slide deck, how do you prepare your lecture notes, just to make sure that your lectures are engaging. With your lecture, when you're introducing the topic, your introduction needs to do two things. You need to set a very clear and very engaging agenda to really kind of set the goal and the tone for the day. So you're telling them flat out, okay, today's topic is this. And to be more engaging about it, you need to let them know why that topic is important. So why are we covering this? Why are we going over this material? Along with that, just give them an outline of the objectives for the day. Like saying, okay, in this lecture, we're going to talk about this. We're going to cover these 3 topics. We're going to cover these 4 topics. Just lay it out from them from the beginning. It's just going to help them a lot in terms of taking notes. It's going to help them a lot in terms of asking and answering questions. So just give them kind of an agenda for the day. For your sake, create an outline. Lay out your main points, lay out whatever examples you plan on using, lay out any demonstrations or any illustrations, examples you plan on giving. It's going to be better for you just because you don't want to get up there and just talk for 50 minutes with no structure, with no organization. And we've all had a professor or two that have done that. They get up, no notes, no agenda, no flow. They just get up there, kind of talk really to themselves for about 50, 75 minutes. And then you're just as confused as you was when you walked in. If you go ahead and set your outline, it's going to be easier for you to stay on track, and it's going to be easier for the students to follow. And I guarantee you, if the students can follow you a lot better, they're going to be more engaging. They're going to ask questions. They're going to answer your questions more effectively. They're going to know what you're talking about. So set that outline and stick with it. Follow it. You can't cover everything in 50 or 75 minutes. You just can't. My rule of thumb is limit the main foci in your lecture, so the main points that you're covering in a lecture, limit it to 5. If you have more than 5 key points for a topic, then it may be wise to break it up over a few days. But any lecture that you give, and I mean, this is just kind of what I follow, if it's more than 5 key points, I either trim it down or I spread it over 2 days. I mean, that's really all they have for their attention span. That's really all the time you have. So, I mean, don't try to cram everything into that short amount of time. I mean, if it's that important of a topic, and some topics are, some complex topics are important to where you do need to take 2 or 3 class days to cover it, just avoid trying to cram in that much material into one. When you can, just to grab their attention, use visuals, use examples, use discussion questions, use demonstrations if you're in like a lab class or things like that. Anything that you can use to really kind of reinforce or supplement your points and to really kind of push the discussion forward, to really get them engaged in the conversation as well. And then your conclusion, when you're done with your lecture, it should do 2 things. You're tying together the points that you made throughout the lecture, so you're just going back and referring to the information that you covered. And it's really important for the students to understand how this topic fits into the grand scheme of things. So the more that you can say that, okay, this is what we discussed, now here is where it fits in the topic of this class, or here is where it fits really in the wider view of this class. The more you can relate it back to why it's important to them. Not just at the beginning and at the end, but really just throughout the lecture. The more that you can say, okay, this is why this information is important, then the more engaged they're going to be with that information, and the more they're going to be able to actually recall and regurgitate that information back to you. Yep. Any questions about preparing lectures? All right. So I asked you about syllabi earlier. So another question I got for you. What were some of the issues that you had with assignment sheets? So a professor hands you an assignment sheet for one of the assignments you're doing in a class. What were some things that you noticed that may have been wrong about that assignment sheet? What were some things that made you mad about that assignment sheet?
Like there wasn't a rubric.
All right.
There wasn't how many points it was.
Yep. I had no idea how the assignment was going to be graded. All right. What else?
Instructions were not clear.
Say that again.
Instructions were not clear.
Yeah, don't give me an assignment sheet if you're not even going to tell me what I need to do for the assignment. There's no point. So yeah, the instructions weren't clear. They were vague. What else? Anything else? Yeah.
I hate it when it was like too broad, like you give us like 100 pages of reading, and then the assignment is 6 multiple choice questions. I've had that.
Absolutely. Yeah. What else? What else? Yeah.
Sometimes, and sometimes this can't be helped, but it's always very nice, and sometimes it's very sad not to see like an example paper that can help at least, even if not word for word, but at least guide the student.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. I mean, the more you can give examples, I mean, the more effective those assignments are going to be when they get across your desk.
I have a comment
Okay.
in regards to the assignment sheet.
Okay.
And what's expected on the assignment sheet. What I found out, what I've experienced teaching labs is that especially when you're dealing with people who may be coming straight out of high school and you're trying to acclimate them to college life, is that they want you to give everything to them spoon-fed. So
Yep.
they're asking for a study guide, they're asking you to put specifics down, and a lot of times, especially as you're progressing up in higher education, the instructions are gonna be broad. You know, you're not gonna have everything given to you. So how do you balance by giving them what they need, but also requiring of them to use some context clues and ask questions?
Okay, let's talk about it. All right. So I'm not going to go through like detail by detail, like this is how you write an assignment sheet, because honestly, depending on your discipline, depending on your class, they're all going to be different. What I'm going to talk about is here are 3 mistakes that we make, I mean myself included, we make when we're writing assignment sheets. And these are some things to think about when you're coming up with these. All right, the first one is the assignment sheet is just way too long. Like you're just giving way too much information, and you kind of run into kind of your situation where you may be just spoon feeding them too much information to where every single assignment that is turned into you is going to be the exact same. Well, it was the exact same because you gave them instructions that basically made the assignment the exact same. Once again, this is college. These are not high school students. They need to have some freedom in their learning. They need to be able to really kind of be more independent with how they approach these things. With assignment sheets, I try to keep my minor assignments to 1 page. I try to keep my major assignments to 2 to 3 pages. If your assignment sheet has to be longer than that, then you're giving them way too much information. I mean, that's enough. You don't need to repeat information that's in your syllabus. You already gave them your syllabus. You already wrote a 10, 15-page document. So you don't need to regurgitate that information again. You don't need to repeat that information again. The only thing that I would say is deadlines. You do want to tell them when this assignment is due. And even if it's in your syllabus, still say it again on your assignment sheet. That's where you're going to run into the most issues, folks. It's the deadline. If you don't have a clear deadline on that assignment sheet, then they're going to come up with every excuse in the book for why they didn't turn in that assignment on time. To help you make sure the assignment sheet isn't too long, just get to the point of the assignment quickly. Just say in that first paragraph, this assignment is this. The reason that you're doing it is this. Give the purpose right from the start and then provide the important details from there. Okay? I actually gave you an example assignment sheet in your notebook from a planning report project that I used for my campaigns class. So you have that in there. It's a major assignment, so it's 2 pages long. But I tell them from the start, hey, this is your planning report to move you from the research and planning stage to the development stage of your campaign. And then I lay out every single requirement, everything that I'm expecting in that assignment sheet. That's it. Like I don't necessarily need to give them like too much elaboration or too much detail. I just need to say, hey, this section is covering this. This section is covering this. Go do it. All right. Mistake number 2, the assignment sheet is too vague. Once again, what's the point of giving them an assignment sheet if you're not actually going to lay out what they need to do for the assignment? What you don't want, and this is the sign of a bad assignment sheet, if at the end of going over that assignment sheet and you say, okay, students, do you have any questions? And more than half of the students' hands go up, then that means that you did something terribly wrong with your assignment sheet. You don't want to give the students more questions than answers. I mean, you just want to lay out the information that they need. Tell them the purpose of the assignment at the beginning. So on that example assignment sheet that I gave you, I tell them that, hey, this is the planning report. This is taking you from this stage to this stage. So they understand exactly what the purpose of this assignment is. Why are they doing it? Be clear about the requirements that you are looking for and how you are grading the assignment sheet. So with the example I gave you, every section of that planning report, I'm grading it. Every single section. So they know that, all right, these are the sections of this planning report. This is what I'm going to be graded on. And my descriptions tell them very clearly, this is what I'm looking for in each section. So if it's not there, they're getting points off. Just lay it out. Make sure that you're clear about the requirements. Make sure that you're clear about the grading. But also, if you can, And this is kind of where I agree with some professors, but I also disagree with some professors. Direct students to examples if you can. I mean, there's no harm in that. That's just going to keep you from getting assignments that look nothing like what you're looking for. So with something as complex as this planning report, I usually send them 4 examples, 2 bad and 2 good. So that way they know exactly what I'm looking for, but more importantly, they know exactly what I'm not looking for. So I give them 2 A planning reports and I give them 2 F planning reports. Don't give them a C planning report or anything like, or a C assignment like that, because that's just going to tell them, okay, this is the bare minimum. This is what I need to make to get a C. Show them an outstanding one, and then show them one that's just an utter failure. And that way they understand what the expectations are. Yeah? The third mistake, it lacks guidelines. Once again, if you are giving them an assignment sheet, you need to tell them what they need to do for the assignment. This includes how they need to submit it, how it needs to be formatted, when is it due. Make sure that information is in there. Tell them exactly how you want them to submit the assignment. Tell them when the assignment is due. Once again, I don't accept late work. So I tell them date, time, better be in my inbox. If it's not in my inbox by this date, at the end of the business day, by 5 p.m., then I am not counting the assignment. I also tell them if I'm asking for a PDF, do not send me a Word document. Do not send me a Pages document. Like, send me a PDF. And for some classes, I take points off if they don't follow the right format. Make sure you're telling them exactly how you want them to submit it and tell them when it's due. And the formatting thing, the submission thing, I promise you folks, it seems kind of nitpicky, but when you're getting, let's say you got a class of 20 or 30 people and you're getting assignments from like all 20 or 30 students, it's just easier for you if they're all formatted the same way. It's easier for your grading, it's easier for your rubric, it's easier for everything. Give them any information about formatting, other directions that's going to help them complete the assignment, and then tell them how the assignment is going to be graded. Now, I'm not saying that you need a complete rubric for the assignment, but you at least need to say, okay, your assignment's going to be graded on these 5 categories, and they're going to be worth 20 points apiece. Once again, it just lets the students know, okay, these are the things that my instructor is looking for in this assignment, so I need to make sure that that's what I focus on. Okay? All right, we're short on time. I got time for a couple of questions. Do we have any questions about syllabi, about assignment sheets, lectures, course prep, anything that I didn't cover? Yes?
So if you're not going to give them a rubric, would you just like put it in Blackboard or something?
Yeah, you can give them a rubric if you want to. And what I usually do is I'll lay out just what the criteria for the assignment on the assignment sheet. And if it's a complex assignment and I actually want to give them a rubric, I may email it to them or post it on Blackboard Learn or something like that. But at least let them know that, okay, 50% of my grade is based on this, 50% of my grade is based on this, or some kind of format to how it's going to be graded. So, but the reason I say that is because I just don't want you to have to write a rubric for every single assignment that you're grading. So, all right, any other questions? All right. Well, look, welcome to the University of Alabama. Enjoy the rest of the workshop. If you have any questions for me that you want to ask one-on-one, we have a little bit of time before your next session. Otherwise, enjoy the semester and welcome.